Welcome to the season premiere of Thursday Night Football here on the NFL Network, and welcome to FedEx Field here in Landover, Maryland. For the start of Week 2 of the 2021 NFL season, an old-fashioned NFC East rivalry kicks us off here in Week 2 as the 0-1 New York Giants are in town to play the 0-1 Washington football team. Now, good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the broadcast booth here in FedEx Field. My name is Tamir Moore. It's nice to have all of you back with us. The Giants make the short trip to Landover this week to play the Washington football team. Both teams coming off losses in their season openers, so this is a critical game, albeit just the second week of the season. Whoever loses this game will already be 0-2 and already have one division loss, so that's not good. Keep in mind that these two teams were the top two teams in the NFC East last year. The Washington football team finished last season 7-9, division winner, and the Giants were second in the division because of tiebreakers with Dallas at 6-10. And keep in mind the NFC East was pretty bad last year. As you know, no team finished above 500. Washington finished with the best record. In fact, the NFC East has not had a repeat division winner since the Eagles did it back in 2003 and 2004. It's been 16 years in the NFC East since we've had a repeat division winner. It has been a mighty struggle. And for the Giants, they have not won an NFC title since 2011. For the Washington football team, Tyler Heinicke will be the starting quarterback tonight. Washington's already had a quarterback change in just the second week of the season. Last week against the Chargers in the law, Heinicke was called to fill in after original starter Ryan Fitzpatrick had to leave because of a hip injury. Fitzpatrick's now on IR, so this is Heinicke's team for the foreseeable future. And if you look at Taylor's numbers, in relief last week, Heinicke's numbers, 11-15 for 122 yards, a touchdown, and a quarterback rating of 119.3. So Taylor Heinicke, we will see what he does tonight. Regardless of whether it was Heinicke or Fitzpatrick last week, wide receiver Terry McLaurin for the Washington football team was featured heavily. His numbers last week against the Chargers, 4 target, 4 reception for 62 yards. Let's flip it over to the Giants. Their pass D struggled against Denver quarterback Teddy Bridgewater and the Broncos last week in the 27-13 loss of the Meadowlands for the Giants. The Giants pass D allowed Bridgewater to throw 2 touchdown passes and allowed Bridgewater to have a quarterback rate of 115.7. The Giants also had a pretty poor rush defense against the Broncos in Week 1. They allowed Denver's running back to a 28 carry for 165 yards. They almost allowed 6 yards for carry, and they gave up a 70-yard bomb to Broncos running back Melvin Gordon for a touchdown. But the good news is for the Washington team, they can rely on pretty good running back production. Case in point, let's think about this example. Washington running back Antonio Gibson last week against the Chargers, 20 carries for 90 yards. And the pass defense for the football team is pretty solid. Last week against Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, the exciting second-year quarterback out of Oregon, they allowed Herbert to throw just 1 touchdown pass. They did force the Washington team, did force Herbert to throw a pick and kept his rating under 90, 85.2. Building off of last season's success. The Washington football team has a wonderful front four with players such as Chase Young, Montrez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. The list goes on and on. This Washington football team is pretty stout. You really don't want to run against this team. Defensively, they're really good. Daniel Jones, the Giants quarterback, last week, he put together a good stat line, 267 yards and a touchdown and a quarterback rate of 90.7. However, against the Broncos last week, Jones did put the ball on the ground again, so that's something he had to clean up. Pay attention to Giants running back Saquon Barkley. Remember last year, the devastating ACL injury, Week 2 at Chicago, that cost Saquon Barkley the majority of the season. And they're slowly, methodically putting Saquon Barkley back into the fold. And you look at Saquon Barkley, he was pretty minimal as far as numbers go last week against the Broncos. 10 carry for 26 yards, but the Giants are slowly working him back. And like I mentioned before, the front four of the Washington football team makes them a stout team to run against. 29 carries, 90 yards, 3.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown allowed to the Chargers running back core last week. You look at this all-time series, the Giants lead the all-time series 104-68-4. The Giants have won the last 5. So definitely Washington needs to win against this team. The Giants have owned them. And you think about it, this is a game that could determine a lot in the NFC East down the line. And like I said before, some of the pertinent numbers here that we didn't cover before the notes. Sterling Shepard, the Giants wide receiver, led the team with 7 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown catch against Denver last week. Wide receiver Kenny Golladay for the Giants had 64 receiving yards, and tight end Emmett Ingram had a touchdown catch in the last meeting. Defensive back Logan Ryan of the Giants led the team with 10 tackles, his 5th career 10-tackle game, and had a 4th fumble and fumble recovery in Week 1 against Denver. Has 5 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, a 4th fumble, and a stat in free career games against the Washington football team. Linebacker Blake Martinez of the Giants had 9 tackles last week against the Broncos. We look at the Washington football team, we can see that last week, Washington quarterback William Jackson had 2 pass deflections and his 4th career interception in Week 1. Defensive tackle Jonathan Allen had a sack last week against the Chargers. Defensive end Montrezl Sweat had a sack and a 4th fumble. Last time these two teams played in November of last year, which turned out to be a 23-20 Giants win, defensive end Chase Young had a sack. Wide receiver Terry McLaurin had a team-high 62 receiving yards last week. The last time these two teams played in November of last year, he had 7 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. And running back J.T. McKissick of the football team aimed for 3rd in a row versus the Giants with at least 5 catches and 80 scrimmage yards. Some other notes to keep in mind from last week for Washington. Terry McLaurin has 248 career receiving yards in Week 1 contests. And you look at this team, Washington, this is a big game for them. Chase Young, I heard Chase give a player interview to the media earlier this week, and Chase Young said, quote, "We flipped the page regarding Sunday's loss to the Chargers. It's a short week. We got to move on. We got to get ready for the Giants." And Saquon Barkley said, in quote, "It felt good to be back out there," regarding his return to the football field this past Sunday, albeit they did lose against the Denver Broncos. And again, you look at the last meeting between these two teams, 23-20 Giants win in this stadium November of last season. And obviously, this is an early season matchup that has plenty of implications down the line here. I'm very sorry if I occasionally pause here. Oh, here we go. Let's talk more about the Washington football team against the Chargers last week. They lost in a close battle. Chargers delivered their first blow last week as Justin Herbert went 6 for 6. The Chargers quarterback on the opening drive lead to a 3-yard touchdown rushing by Austin Eckler. Then Antonio Gibson, the running back for the football team, responded by floating for a 27-yard field goal in the following drive, coming with several short passes by Ryan Fitzpatrick to set up a set to 30-yard field goal. Forcing a stop, Fitzpatrick positioned Washington for another scoring drive that was cut short by a forced fumble sack from Joey Bosa that was recovered. This drive would result in another 43-yard field goal by place kicker Dustin Hopkins. After some offensive stagnation, Justin Herbert connected with Mike Williams for 18 yards to jumpstart the Chargers offense again, followed by a 16-yard pass to Keenan Allen and a deep left ball to Jalen Guyton for 22 yards that will put them in the red zone. The defense showed resistance in the red zone with Jonathan Allen recording a sack that led to an eventual field goal. Washington started the second quarter with hopes of scoring in 3 consecutive drives before Fitzpatrick encountered a shot in the pocket from Minonsu that will take him out of the game with a hip injury that led to Fitzpatrick being placed on the IR this week. The drive will result in a punt that will lead the Chargers in scoring a field goal, and Heinicke started the rest of Sunday's game, and he'll be the starter tonight, and of course he'll be the starter moving forward. Washington defense forced 2 turnovers in the red zone, including intercepted by William Jackson and a forced fumble by Montez Sweat that led to a touchback. But with the Chargers offense showing dominant, converting 74% of their third down, their offense was able to score again from good field position following a fumble from Antonio Gibson and managed to have possession of the ball for the last 6 minutes to close the game. So that's the Washington story last week. You look at the Giants story from last week. They played the Denver Broncos. It was a 27-13 loss for the Giants. And you look at the Giants here, you saw in the first quarter, the Giants didn't put up any point. They put up 7 points in the second quarter, no points in the third, and 6 points in the fourth quarter. Last week, the Giants struggled a lot, and you look here at some of the numbers here. The Giants only had the ball for 25 minutes last week. Denver had it the other 35 minutes. And look at the first down. 19 for the Giants, 24 for Denver. And obviously it took the Giants a long time to get going. But Giants, one of the keys for them tonight is having a fast start. You can't start slow. And these two teams know that starting off fast will be crucial and vital for these two teams to get off to a good start that could pave their path to victory. So, it's the New York Giants taking on the Washington football team. Some key players to watch: Montez Sweat, Chase Young, Sterling Shepard, Daniel Jones, and more at the Giants in Washington. Kickoff week 2 of the 2021 NFL season. The winner will even their record at 1-1. The loser will fall to 0-2. Next week, Washington visits Buffalo while the Giants host the Falcons. Giants Washington Thursday Night Football to see premiere tonight at 8:20 p.m. Eastern here on the NFL Network. I'm Tamir Moore. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's game.